I've stood outside the Ravenmore Palace gates for 11 years. You learn to disappear inside the uniform. The bearskin cap presses down, the red tunic holds you straight, and after a while people stop seeing a man. They see a statue, a photo opportunity, something to poke at. So when I tell you what happened that gray afternoon in early autumn, understand, I wasn't supposed to feel anything. That's the whole job. Stone doesn't feel. But I did. It had been raining on and off since morning. Not proper rain. That fine mist that hangs in the air and soaks you slower, the kind tourists never dress for. The cobblestones outside the west gate had gone dark and slick. I could smell wet wool from my own sleeves. The crowd that day was thin. A cluster of schoolchildren in matching yellow raincoats, an older couple sharing an umbrella, whispering to each other in French. A few teenagers filming themselves. Ordinary. Nothing that made the hair on my neck stand up. Then I saw the boy. He was small, maybe 8 years old, dressed too well for a tourist, a proper little coat, polished shoes, the sort of clothes a family buys when appearances matter more than comfort. He stood apart from everyone, close to the railing on my left, and he wasn't looking at me the way children usually do. Children usually grin. They wave. They try to make you crack. This boy just stared at the ground. I clocked it and moved on. You're trained not to fix on any one person. Your eyes sweep, they don't settle. But something about the way he held himself, shoulders pulled in, hands twisting the hem of his coat, it caught in me like a thorn. Behind him stood a man. Tall, expensive coat, a phone held up, filming. Not filming me, filming the boy. And there was a woman a few steps back too, half turned away, as though she'd rather not be part of whatever was happening. I heard the man's voice before I understood the words. Low, sharp. The tone parents use when they've decided a child is an embarrassment. Go on, do it properly this time. People are watching. The boy flinched. Now I need you to understand something about the discipline. You do not react. A guard has fainted from heat and stayed at attention until he dropped. Men have had wasps crawl across their faces. Insults, spitting, teenagers screaming an inch from your ear to win a bet, you take it. You take all of it. Because the uniform isn't about you. It's about the thing behind you, the crown, the country, the whole long line of people who wore it before. So I kept my eyes forward. I told myself it's a family thing, not your business, stay stone. But the boy stepped closer to me, and I heard him whisper, so quiet I almost missed it under the mist, I don't want to, please. And the man's voice again, harder now. I didn't ask what you want. For a long moment nothing moved. I kept my eyes locked on the middle distance, the way you're trained, but every other part of me had gone sharp and awake. The mist, the wet stone, the murmur of the schoolchildren behind, and that man's voice cutting through all of it. Take the cap, he said. Grab it and run, it'll be hilarious. Go on before I count to 3. I felt something cold slide down my spine that had nothing to do with the rain. He wanted the boy to snatch the bearskin off my head, to make a scene, to get a video, the kind that racks up millions of views, a small child yanking a guard's cap while the guard stands there helpless. Content. That's all the boy was to him, a prop for a phone screen. The boy looked up at me then, first time all afternoon, and his eyes, I've thought about those eyes every day since. They weren't mischievous. They were pleading. He was begging me silently to somehow save him from having to do the thing he was being ordered to do. One, the man said. The French couple had stopped whispering. A few of the teenagers lowered their phones. You could feel the crowd sensing something wasn't right, the way a room goes quiet before a glass falls. 2. The boy's hand rose, trembling, reaching toward the strap under my chin, tears sitting on the edge of his lashes, not falling yet, held back by whatever pride an 8-year-old can muster. And here is where I stopped being a statue. I did the one thing 11 years of training told me never to do. I moved. Not fast, not violent. I turned my head just enough and I looked down at him, straight at him, and in the lowest voice I had, barely a breath, I said, "You don't have to." That's all, 3 words. The boy froze. His hand stopped in the air between us. The man stepped forward, angry now, the phone still up. "What did you say to him? You don't talk. You're not allowed to talk." I straightened back to attention, eyes forward, stone again, but I'd broken the spell and he knew it. The boy dropped his hand, and then, quietly, he stepped away from the man, 1 step, 2, and stood beside me instead, right at the railing, close to the wet red of my sleeve, like he'd decided in that instant which side of the gate he belonged on. The man's face went through something ugly. He hissed at the boy to come back. The boy didn't move. And that's when the woman finally turned around. She'd been standing back the whole time, half hidden, and now she came forward with her jaw set. I braced for more of the same. I thought, here's the other one, here's where it gets worse. But she walked straight past the man. She crouched down beside the boy, and she put her arm around his shoulders. "That's enough, Daniel," she said, not to the boy, to the man. "I told you at the hotel, I'm not doing this anymore." Turns out she was the boy's aunt. The man was her sister's husband, and the boy had been passed to them for the week while his mother was ill. And this Daniel had spent the whole trip using the child as bait for videos, filming him crying, filming him doing dares, anything for the numbers. She'd gone along with it out of fear of making a scene. Family. You know how it goes. You tell yourself it's not your place. But she just watched a stranger in a stupid tall hat say 3 words her nephew needed to hear, and something in her broke loose. The man tried to grab the boy's arm, and that's when I broke formation the second time. I turned, fully this time, squared my shoulders to him. Didn't touch him, you don't touch them, that's the line you don't cross, but I stood between him and the boy, all 6'2" of red and black and 11 years of stillness, and I looked at him the way you look at a man you have measured and found small. He let go. By then a colleague had radioed the gate. 2 officers came out, calm, unhurried the way they do it. They took Daniel aside. The aunt gave a statement. The schoolchildren in their yellow raincoats watched the whole thing with their mouths open, and I heard one of them whisper, "The guard talked. The guard actually talked." Before they led the man off, the boy, Daniel's nephew, tugged my sleeve. I looked down. He held out his hand, very serious, very formal, like he'd seen someone do it in a film. I shook it. Against every rule I have. I shook a small boy's hand at the west gate of Ravenmore Palace in the rain, while the mist came down on both of us, and I don't regret it and I never will. The aunt took him for hot chocolate somewhere warm. I went back to my post, cap on, eyes forward, stone again for the rest of my shift like nothing had happened. But something had. People think this uniform is about not feeling, about being harder than the crowd, colder than the weather, so still you become part of the building. And most days that's true, that's the job. But that day taught me the thing they don't put in the training. The stillness isn't there to make you stop feeling. It's there so that, on the one day it matters, the one day a child looks up at you with no one else in the world on his side, you're still standing exactly where he needs you to be.